Am I the asshole for refusing to lie about my husband having a favorite child? When I met my husband, he had a 15-year-old daughter, who was for the most part easy to get along with though ridiculously spoiled. His daughter's mother had some mental issues and he was a single dad for most of her childhood. He said he never wanted kids and she had been a result of birth control failure and that he didn't want any more. I told him that not having kids was a deal breaker for me and he quickly reconsidered. His daughter was 17 when our daughter was born and I was shocked at how jealous she was. In general, she is not the clingy emotional type, but she was furious. He made it his priority to make her feel better and reassure her that she was always going to be the important one. My stepdaughter went to college and thrived and we had another child. She wasn't even jealous that time, but he still made a big production of loving her more. Right now our kids are 13 and 15 and my stepdaughter is 32, married with kids, and living on her own, but it is still pretty clear that he favors her. They talk on the phone almost daily, but he has a hard time talking to our daughters because they're too emotional. Right now he is visiting his oldest daughter at her beach house and we weren't invited because she hates our 13-year-old. My daughter did go through a phase of being very rude and acting out, but we did therapy and discipline and it is under control right now. I said he shouldn't go see his daughter because it is rude to exclude his wife and kids, and he said he doesn't care if she is rude, she's still his daughter. In the past, when the kids said something, I made excuses for him. We FaceTimed today and my 13-year-old made a comment about my stepdaughter being his favorite and I just said, "I'm sorry, honey." When the kids got off the phone, he got mad at me for not correcting her, but I said I'm not going to lie about it anymore. He has admitted to me in private that she is his favorite, but he says it's not his fault and he can't control how he feels.
Everyone sucks here. He should have just let it be a deal breaker. There is no compromise between wants kids and does not. Someone ends up unhappy.
You knew what you were marrying. He'd shown you before you had kids with him. Having said that, she and your husband are entitled to a relationship that doesn't include you and your children. He is her father. She doesn't have a traditional relationship with her half-siblings. If it is a family event, like a wedding or anything like that, then sure, they should attend. The problem comes from your husband's blatant favoritism, not really on your stepdaughter or daughters. He can't control how he feels, but he can control his actions.
Your husband sucks for being a bad father to his younger daughters. Your stepdaughter sucks for being such a brat and also holding animosity against her preteen stepsisters. But you are the asshole for creating this situation and being surprised at this outcome. He made it very clear didn't want any other kids and you used having them as a bargaining chip. No wonder he feels so indifferent about raising and loving them. And your stepdaughter immediately showed her true colors with the birth of your first, so I'm not sure what you expected to change. I feel bad for your younger daughters. You are the asshole, an ultimatum to have a kid and then shocked when he doesn't favor them. Also, you just played yourself. By acknowledging this, your kids will rightly blame you as you stood by and let this happen. By the way, I'm not wild about the age gap. It is no wonder when you are less than 10 years older than his daughter she didn't warm up to you.
Your husband sucks for obviously favoring his oldest child, but you essentially confirmed that to your 13-year-old, which isn't fair on her. Your title is also disingenuous, because the options were not lying or refusing to lie. You could have been more sensitive and found a way to protect your 13-year-old's feelings. You're both now responsible for splitting your family in two.
But you knew that he didn't want more kids and that he favored his older daughter basically right away. But you kept your kids in that environment and didn't do anything to change the situation. Yeah, he sucks for favoring her. But your poor kids are caught in the crossfire and you didn't do anything to stop it.
Not the asshole. Your husband has a right to be spending time with his daughter. That's not the problem. The problem is that his younger children feel neglected by him. Lying to them will just cause confusion and might even be gaslighting. Obviously, don't say anything to your children to deliberately turn them against their father, but they're old enough to form their own opinions based on his behavior, and if those opinions are negative, that's your husband's fault, not yours.
You are the asshole. What did your daughters do? Also, what's wrong with a biological father spending time with his biological daughter without a step-parent? Seems kind of selfish that you don't think they deserve alone time. And #X200B. Edit. Verdict changed after I read the absolute U-turn Op took from her initial post.
Info: why did you stay and have kids with this guy? He said he never wanted kids and she had been a result of birth control failure and that he didn't want any more. It doesn't seem like he changed his mind on having kids, or wanted yours in the first place. Everyone sucks here except for your kids. Their dad should have been a better parent to them rather than acting like a step-dad, and you should have made him commit to your kids to the extent that they deserved. Not the asshole. Your husband clearly has a favorite child, and there's little point trying to gloss over it. He's being shitty by not just having a favorite but then expecting you to essentially gaslight your daughter by pretending that this isn't happening. Good on you for acknowledging it. I was the unfavored child with my dad growing up, and it was infuriating when people would try and invalidate my feelings.
Not the asshole. Your HB is the one who is the asshole for having a favorite. Your stepdaughter should behave, but she is not obligated to like you or her half-siblings. Also, what is the age difference between you and your HB? If you are much younger than him, and closer to her age, that is going to be a difficult family dynamic for her.
Before jumping into a decision, I would like to know more about H's favoritism. Why does your 13-year-old think that she is less favored compared to her half-sis? Is this just because H went to the beach house for a vacation leaving the rest of the family behind, or does H show favoritism in other instances as well? I'm asking because favoring one child and making it obvious are two different things.
Everyone sucks here. Your husband sucks how he treats his two younger daughters and how he gets angry at you. But you should have stepped in with the blatant favoritism immediately when it started, not let it go on for this long. This family dynamic is incredibly messed up and you've let your daughters go through this their entire lives while they had to watch their dad favor their older half-sister. And his daughter sucks just as much, for still holding a grudge against a kid who did nothing wrong to her. All the adults suck. You are the asshole for making your kids live like this. Allowing your children to be less than is terrible parenting. You should have protected them from that. No wonder your daughter is rude to her stepsister. I'd probably be rude too if I knew my parents were totally fine with making sure I knew I was a second-class child.
Info: how long were your husband and his ex-girlfriend, wife, separated before your relationship began? Has the stepdaughter forgiven her father for marrying someone close to her own age, or is the dynamic still stressed? I'm adding judgment of Esh. He needs to be an adult and treat his children equally. If he loves one more, that is sad and hurtful. He should keep that to himself. The children should never need to know that or feel like they aren't loved equally. You come into play because this should not have been allowed to go on this long. I'm glad you are fighting back for your children now though. I hope the situation works out for your family.
Everyone sucks here. The wider situation and favoritism. You should not polarize matters by saying he shouldn't go and see his daughter because it is rude to exclude his wife and kids. He is right in that respect. Even if you, the kids and the stepdaughter don't get along at all, he still should be her father and go and see her. And you convinced someone who didn't want any more kids to have more kids in order to keep you. That's got to have been a warning sign that he might not be the most present parent and enthusiastic father in the future. He was telling you he viewed his life as complete without kids at all, as the first child had been an accident. Info: it sounds like you pressured him into having more kids. Then you blame him for not loving these kids the same as someone who has been in his life for 30 years. What Aaron you telling us?
Esh. I was with a guy who didn't want kids. I did. I told him it was a deal breaker, and at one point he told me he'd get married and have a kid because he loved me. So we broke up. This man legit told you he wanted this one daughter and no more. He compromised on having kids he didn't really want, and now they gotta suffer because y'all two couldn't figure out y'all weren't compatible in this way.
Not the asshole. Your husband sounds terrible at setting healthy boundaries with your stepdaughter and not doing more work to show the other kids that he cares about them. I can't believe he left you and the other kids behind to go to the beach house.
Not the asshole. Why is a 32-year-old woman with a husband and family still hate a 13-year-old? That's the question you should be asking. Your husband said he didn't want kids after his first daughter. You should have broken up right there and then because it was so obvious what he was going to do, to the point where your children don't feel loved by their father and feel second to him, which is something no child should experience. You shouldn't have let him change his mind about having more kids. Him for obvious reasons and you for allowing him to treat your children this way. How you could stay with someone who blatantly treats your children less than their older sibling is mind-blowing to me.
Not the asshole. Honestly, your husband is awful, but I can kinda see how you were a part of creating this mess. He said he never wanted kids, and you slapped down an ultimatum instead of just breaking up with him. You really should have never had kids with a guy who never wanted kids, and now you're surprised he's playing favorites? It's very obvious from the start that both of your ideas of what you want your life to be were incompatible. If he's playing favorites, that's gotta be hella damaging to your kids. My mom still has issues from it, and she's 53.
Everyone sucks here. Having not kids was a deal breaker, so he quickly reconsiders. No wonder he doesn't like them as much as his first daughter. He didn't want them in the first place. And you should have moved on.
Everyone sucks here. To be honest, it's fine having a favorite child as everyone has one. What's not fine is showing it at all. If the 13-year-old knows the older one is the favorite, he's seriously fucked up, and honestly you should have intervened earlier than this. This very well have significant impacts on your two daughters growing up, manifesting in who knows what ways.
You're the asshole for staying and having a child with someone who was clearly not enthusiastic about parenthood. He's the asshole for going along with it and the favoritism.
You should have broken things when he said he didn't want more children.
I can't blame the adult daughter for not wanting the step-siblings to come based on the behavior described in the comments. Has the younger one actually shown improvement to her, or does it remain to be proven? Can't blame the younger ones for feeling resentful and acting out. Can't really blame you, either. Can't blame the adult daughter for being spoiled after being spoiled for her whole life. Can't blame the father for feeling resentful after having more kids even though not wanting any of them. But as was mentioned in the comments, he has the choice of how to act, even though he can't choose how to feel towards his kids. And if he can't even lie to his kids that he has no favorites, he has no right to expect you to do it for him.
Honestly, it's your husband's fault why your stepdaughter is so spoiled. He enabled her and he's just a bad father. You're not wrong for being honest to your children about it. But you're kinda an asshole too, because you knew he didn't want more kids but you still went ahead with marrying him. I know you said he changed his tune, but by the looks of things you shouldn't have taken his word for it.
This is a great example of how views change depending on who writes the post. Imagine if the oldest daughter had written this. Something like, "My dad and I had a close relationship, then he met a new woman. She convinced him against his will to have more kids, but we always stayed close and I know he just loves me best. I tried for a long time, blah, blah, blah. My half-sisters are much younger than me and one is a total a-hole. Anyway, I went to my beach house and invited my dad along because we never get our special one-on-one time anymore, and my stepmom threw a fit because we didn't invite her and her child who hates me. Then, they called and stepmom leaned into her a whole daughter saying my dad loved me more. Am I the asshole?
Not the asshole, your husband however definitely is.
You are the asshole. You never tell someone your dealbreaker because all it does is it makes them go back on their own as if you're manipulating them. You don't need to voice your dealbreakers, you just end whatever it is if one of them is broken. If you think your method won't have any repercussions, you're crazy. Of course you tell a 13-year-old that it's not true and the adults speak with each other to see how they can resolve those feelings. What makes you think the 13-year-old won't be affected by her mother's actions? Stop acting like 13 is old enough to full understand the nuances of the world. It's not.
You are the asshole for forcing him to have more children he didn't want.
Not the asshole. Seems like it's an open secret and your daughters are already well aware of it. However, I would refrain from confirming it when you talk to your daughters. It's best to focus on how they feel, and to encourage them to discuss this with their father. You had kids with someone who said they didn't want kids, and now you're surprised Pikachu face at the fact that he doesn't like his kids and connects more with one that is an adult now and he doesn't have to see daily or take care of anymore? He is the asshole for having more kids when he clearly didn't want to and only did because he didn't want to lose you. You're the asshole for standing by while he showed his other daughter favoritism and you didn't do anything about it for 13+ years. Edit to add judgment.
Gonna give a soft not the asshole, as I feel some pertinent details might have been left out, but regardless of that I will say your husband is definitely the asshole and he absolutely can control how he feels. It's called being mentally stable, and he sounds like he needs therapy as well as your daughters for the emotional damage your husband has likely done to them. Also, your stepdaughter should have been told to grow up and shut up when she had her fit about a baby. Your husband shouldn't have enabled her jealousy by assuring her she's the favorite. It sounds like a very unhealthy family dynamic that is gonna take multiple health professionals to help repair the cracks in this family. I wish you luck on this.
You are the asshole. It sounds like you haven't, like his daughter from the start, immediately tried to start your own family with him to make him forget about her, and now you're upset as he hasn't totally abandoned his daughter for you, so you're attempting to turn your daughter's opinion of their father to punish him.
Everyone sucks here, or you are the asshole. But it seems do not involve your freaking child into this mess. You just don't do or say that. She knows who the favorite is, but it shouldn't even matter as the woman is 32 years old. I know I'm not the favorite. I figured that on my own. I'm okay. But if anyone confirms it or had done it earlier, honestly I would have needed a therapist. It's a whole nother kind of trauma. You should correct yourself somehow. I also agree with the comments saying that you messed up with that ultimatum. Now, as to not scar you, I will say it isn't too late to fix things. So go do it. Also, Dad sucks only because he made it very obvious, but he's proud of his daughter and he shouldn't have to hold back because of your insecurity.
Why can I not shake the sneaking suspicion that this would be a complete non-issue if SD was living a lifestyle that was financially equal to or lower than OP's household? The entire crew sound like a huge pot of festering jealousy, from the father's resentment of conceding to have unwanted children, to the daughter that OP has admitted treated SD like shit and antagonized out of jealousy, to OP feeling that a man visiting his own daughter at a nice place is somehow unfair to her and her offspring because they don't get to be in a beach house, creating a situation that would destroy any chance of anyone present of having a decent visit.
I'm going to go against the grain and say YTA. His daughter is there is a 17-year age gap between his children, of course he's gonna treat them differently. On top of that, for 15 years it was just the two of them. It's unreasonable to expect the same level of connection. I don't think you're the asshole for wanting kids and convincing him, to which other people are saying. Although he privately admitted that he favorited his first daughter, I don't think they would have known if you didn't tell them due to her not living at home. The beach house situation probably deserves a thread of its own and you two should probably sort it out, but I don't think your husband is that far out of hand.
Seems like your husband and his daughter have a strong bond, but you pressured him into having more kids despite him not wanting to even have one. You shouldn't have told your young daughters that their dad prefers his firstborn. That will likely mess them up for life. But he also shouldn't so obviously favor his oldest daughter. So yeah, you all kind of suck. Including the stepdaughter who sounds like she's being mean to a bunch of innocent kids.
It's great that you're not actively gaslighting your kids, but you've let this situation go on for 15 years. What have you actually done to protect your children from their father's emotional neglect? To echo you, BB Brashbash and you ill take out the trash comments. He didn't want kids, of course he won't love them as much as someone who enthusiastically wanted them. To quote both of them, he should have just let it be a deal breaker. And why doesn't he love his children he didn't want as much as he loves his child he had accidentally? Y'all suck. A lot. And I don't know what it is, but the way you describe the situation just feels off. To parrot you, Sridenk, I don't know how trustworthy of a narrator you are.
Everyone sucks here. How dare you tell a man he should not go see his kids? You admit that at one point your daughter was having behavioral issues. It may be under control now, but her older sister may not know that. You pressured your husband into having kids and now you're trying to sabotage their relationship instead of strengthening the one he has with his kids with you. And honestly, going to visit one kid doesn't even equate to favoritism for the others. He can't force his adult daughter to play with her siblings.
Why is everyone giving OP a pass here? And stepdaughter has reason not to want a 13-year-old with behavioral issues around her kids. I don't think she's nor do I think it is fair to say she is still jealous.
Not the asshole for refusing to lie. Your children know who the favorite is, and it does no good to pretend otherwise. It sounds as though he feels that he needs to love her more because she only has him. but he is effectively ranking his children by telling your stepdaughter that she is the most important, and the most loved, rather than reassuring her that he loves them all equally. It was somewhat unreasonable of you to try to get your husband to decline his daughter's invitation.
Info. What do you mean by your 13-year-old was very rude? How long did that phase last?
I'm mostly seeing NTA, but honestly, this seems like an esh. Your now husband didn't want kids, so you should have just stopped the relationship then and there. But you didn't, and now your kids are paying for it. You definitely aren't innocent here.
This guy said he didn't want kids. Yet you decided to stay with him and say it was a deal-breaker, leaving him no choice if he wanted to stay with you, and you're surprised he acts this way.